Our next presenter is going to do something very cool and very unique. He's a YouTube expert. He's a director of content marketing at forinstantcustomer.com. He's the CEO of Colligan.com. And Paul's the author of Podcast Strategies, How to Podcast, which you all have a copy of in your bag, which launched on Amazon at #1 in 7 countries the day it was released. He's just going to do something really cool. I'm going to let it be a surprise. Paul also is in charge of our podcast that I do with Dan Sullivan at 10xtalk.com. So give it up to Paul Colligan. Awesome. Thank you.
You guys ready? Okay, up, all right. Note to Paul, push record. What could Paul possibly be recording? That's right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm using this 10-minute talk to record a 9-minute podcast. We're going to record a podcast live. How about that? Start, and here we go. All right, everybody. My name is Paul Colligan from the Ask Paul Colligan podcast. And today we're going to ask the question, why is podcasting now more important than ever? Now, podcasting's sexy. My book, Podcast Strategies, hit #1 in Amazon in 7 countries the day it was released, but podcasting is actually much bigger than that. It's the very essence of the disruptive technology that we heard from Peter yesterday. Now, any talk at an event like 25K New York here with Joe Polish, you have to tell an Oprah story. So let's start with the Oprah story, okay? Late 2006, Mignon Fogarty launches the Grammar Girl podcast, a podcast about grammar. In 2 months, she's #2 on the podcast chart. She's beating all the nerd charts, all the nerd podcasts. She gets a book contract in 3 months. New York Times, Business Week, all these things. 2 months later, she gets a call from Harpo Productions. Apparently, Oprah had made a couple grammatical mistakes. They wanted her to come on the show. She calls her book publisher and says, you know that thing where you get your book published, then you go on Oprah? Yeah, we're going to twist that. We're going to change that. My book isn't out yet. I actually haven't written any of it, but I'm going on Oprah. Book publisher was smart. Book publisher actually took the podcast, took episodes of the free podcast, chopped it up, compiled it up, made an audiobook that was not mentioned on the show at all. Not mentioned once, but she was the #1 top-selling book, Amazon, Audio, Audible, and iTunes books. Pretty good, but it's better than that. My goal is to get you thinking about podcast as an amazing platform. My goal is everybody in this room reaches their audience, my passion, with less effort, greater reach, more profit. I'm making a podcast right now. This is the Ask Paul Colligan podcast. Thousands more people are going to watch or listen to this podcast than are in this room. This is the power of podcasting. So, one can't talk about podcasting without the country of Turkmenistan. Huge in the podcasting space. This is a screen from Turkmenistan Online. It is the only ISP in Turkmenistan. Population 2012 estimate 5.1 million. Here's an interesting stat for you. About 50% of the country is under the age of 25. You type in Turkmenistan in Google, the third entry is the CIA fact page. You go to Wikipedia, the sum of all human knowledge. Websites run by human rights organizations and news agencies are blocked. Moreover, ordinary citizens have no access to the World Wide Web, instead limited to the use of Turkmenet, an online community of Turkmen language, effectively a censored version of the internet. Social networks such as Facebook, YouTube, Twitter are not accessible through Turkmenet. Attempts to get around censorship lead to grave consequences. I am the executive producer of a podcast called the 10X Talk Podcast. Joe Polish and Dan Sullivan. Give it up for them really quick. It is a podcast for the extraordinary entrepreneur, absolutely phenomenal. It is a pleasure, it is an honor to be the producer of this podcast, but I don't only think so. 5 times in Turkmenistan, this podcast was downloaded. They can't get it on YouTube. They can't go to Facebook, but they're getting Joe and Dan's podcast. Think about the implications of that. Who wants that kind of reach? Raise your hand. Exactly. And Dan and Joe actually do. So, what do we do with this? Where are we at? Right now, Apple just announced 1 billion podcast subscriptions. What does that mean? I'm not a nerd, Paul. It's okay. 1 billion podcast subscriptions means that 1 billion times somebody has said, I like this content so much, alert me when there is more. Think about this. I like this content so much, alert me when there is more. That has happened 1 billion times just at Apple. Podcasts rise above all of the noise. Peter showed us autonomous cars. What are they going to do when they're in this autonomous car? They're going to be listening to content. It's getting up. It's getting bigger. They're going to watch the video podcasts as well. My daughter got in the car. I go, honey, I forgot the iPod. She goes, what are we going to do? We're going to listen to radio. She goes, what's radio? I go, radio, it's kind of like what Daddy does, except somebody else chooses the music. She goes, well, why would we do that? This is the future podcasting. We're going to pick our own content. 10 billion connected devices now, 30 billion in the 20s. The number is going to get better. They're going to be listening to content. Will it be yours? Right now, we're 1 billion times at Apple. It's going to get bigger. It's going to get bigger faster, and you want to be part of it. This is the type of listener podcasting produces. Give me more. Alert me when there is more. Update me when there is more. And the numbers are only going to get bigger. Where we're at, our podcasting programs right now, they download the new content when we're ready. That's the thing. If you have the podcast app in your pocket, I like Pocket Casts, actually. It works on Android and Apple the exact same way. But what happens is when there's a new episode, it automatically downloads it. That's where we're at right now. You know what's going to be coming? We're going to be playing Angry Birds. We're going to get a pop-up on our screen that says the latest episode of 10X Talk is live. Would you like us to call you so you can listen to it right now? Podcasts are going to contact you. Podcasts are going to call you. That tech is there right now. Our device is not going to just let us know what's available. They're going to send it to us. Where we are at, podcast is device, geography, and platform independent. Our friends in Turkmenistan realize that. Phones with data are part of the package now in America thanks to T-Mobile. There used to be a smartphone tax in this country. If you had a smartphone, you had to buy the big data package. T-Mobile's changed all that. It's been that way in Europe for a while, but now you get a T-Mobile phone, $10 a month, and you've got access to data on your phones. Okay, the smartphone tax is dead. The smartphone tax is gone. Where we are going is internet everywhere. It's going to cost more money to manage the accounts than it is to give you the internet. And it's going to send content. It's going to send podcasts. And I want it to send your podcast. Look at your neighbor. I want it to send your podcast. That's where we're going. Who's with me? Okay, where we are at right now, we're at free tools. Everything we teach about podcasting, we teach the utilization of free tools, open source tools to make podcasting possible. That's where we're at right now. You don't need to spend a dime on your podcasting software. Where are we going? Tools in the cloud. This phone right here that's recording this episode, I'm going to click a button. It's going to go to the cloud, and what used to cost me $100 in audio editing is going to be done automatically. An instant customer is going to host the podcast before I leave this room tonight. How cool is that? This is where we're going. We all got to be part of it. Where we're at, major players. There's some major players out there in media, and they're not NBC, CBS, or Fox, thank God. And they're Apple, Google, Amazon, Microsoft. Who would like to be on one of them? It's lame. Be on all of them, okay? One of them is no longer good. Be on all of them. With multicasting, you can be across all of the players, delivering your podcast every single person who's hooked up to basically ubiquitous internet with a bunch of free time to consume content that you can tell somebody the second there's more, update me and let me know. We heard yesterday about the democratization of technology. This is the democratization of media, and you all can be part of it. I want you to have the first mover advantage. I want to get you into places before your competition gets there. I want you to visualize someone in the world, even in Turkmenistan, is looking for your content. The device, the network, the access point, the technology doesn't matter. They find you, they interact with you directly. There's nobody in the middle. And every time you release something new, they're notified and they're updated. And they take it in, and they consume it, and they interact with you accordingly. New age of media is upon us. Podcasting is delivering it, and it's pretty exciting. Yes, it got Mignon a gig on Oprah before her book was even published. But I'm going to tell you right now, podcasting, anybody in this room who embraces it is going to go even further than that. So what's your action? Get your podcast live. Get your podcast up. It's really not that hard at all. It doesn't compete with anything else that you are doing. Thank you so much. Talk to you at the next episode. Bye.